Welcome to Radio 64. Welcome to Radio 64 Video Game Music Remix Radio. I'm your host, Eric Mickles, also known online as duskvstweak. Radio 64 is part of the Radio Meanwhile network. Visit radiomeanwhile.com for more information about this and other great podcasts. Find past episodes of Radio 64 on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube. And thank you to WRAQ 92.7 FM in Angelica, New York for hosting us every Monday at 6 p.m. We opened the show with The Fall of Artorias by RoeTaKa from ocremix.org from the game Dark Souls. That was a pretty dark, gothic, solemn piece right there. I like the harpsichord in there. I like that choir. According to these notes, there's some oboe in there. I think this song is just pulling out the stops for this pretty cinematic piece. I haven't played Dark Souls. Again, all I've played of the Dark Souls-like games is Hollow Knight and Neo, but I've enjoyed them. I've got Demon Souls to play, so eventually I'd like to at least see what all the fuss is about. We'll see. So again, that was The Fall of Artorias by RoeTaKa from ocremix.org from the game Dark Souls. Up next is a rock synth piece by WillRock from the game The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. Is taking that Tal Heights and having a ball with it. This is one of my absolute favorite mixes. Link's Awakening is one of my favorite Zelda games. It's probably in my top 3 still, and I'm talking about the original Game Boy version. And listening to this song makes me feel exactly how I felt back then playing that game. While the Game Boy, only had a limited hardware for its sound, this one just kind of recreates that and ups the energy of what the Game Boy was capable of. So this is Mountain of Dreams by WillRock from ocremix.org from the game The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. That was Mountain of Dreams by WillRock from ocremix.org from the game The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. One of the best. I don't think I will play the remake. I'm glad a lot of people are finding joy in it, but the graphic enhancement doesn't really do much for me compared to just the charm and the simplicity of the original Game Boy game. I recently completed the first Witcher game, which now puts me on the road to someday getting to The Witcher 3. There is this impatience in me that just wants to get to The Witcher 3 already. So instead we'll just have to listen to this track called Love and Loss, which is a remix of the Woven Storm mix from The Witcher 3. It's a softer, gentler piano mix than that sad tune that we listened to with Dark Souls. And it still has that orchestral sound. It's still a solemn piece. Though, I mean, the life of the Witcher, it's a sad life. This is Love and Loss by Sebastien Skaf from ocremix.org from the game The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. That was Love and Loss by Sebastien Skaf from ocremix.org from the game The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. And don't let these sweet jungle rhythms trick you. This song that we're about to play has some pretty sweet electric thrashing in there. Fits it right in the title, Thrash the Plank. This is from the original Donkey Kong Country. There's the DK Island swing, but then there's that Gangplank Galleon from that K. Rool fight at the end of the first game. A boss fight that pushed me to my childlike limits back then. Having to memorize all of King K. Rool's moves and those fake credits that show up where you think you beat him and then there's still more boss fight. The music fit perfectly. It was so stressful. This remix captures that essence perfectly. But that electric guitar, I think, gives K. Rool's boss music, that extra oomph that maybe he thought he had back then. So this is Thrash the Plank by SnappleMan from ocremix.org from the game Donkey Kong Country. That was Thrash the Plank by SnappleMan from ocremix.org from the game Donkey Kong Country. I think that there's a remix of that in the Smash Brothers game, and now that Cave Rule's a playable character, and he's just as trollish in that game as he was on the Super Nintendo. We got this really cool piece here called Damn Those Turks. It's a remix of the Turks theme from Final Fantasy VII. Characters I never really cared too much about until the Final Fantasy VII Advent Children movie. This track is on the Final Fantasy VII Voices of the Livestream remix album that OCR put out a while ago. Yeah, it just kind of takes that stylish Turks theme that Nobuo Uematsu had created. Put some choir in there, put some echoing piano. It really is kind of an atmospheric take on, normally I just imagine as that dun 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 theme that they put in Final Fantasy VII, and Darren Baranowsky here has found a lot to do with it for a track that, yeah, never really stuck with me except when it was there. It was in one ear, out the other. Now I love the theme. Thanks, Danny Baranowsky. This is Damn Those Turks by Danny Baranowsky from ocremix.org from the game Final Fantasy VII. That was Damn Those Turks by Danny Baranowsky from ocremix.org from the game Final Fantasy VII, the Turks themes. Not Turk from Scrubs. He has a different theme. Something that he can pop and lock to. JJT here has created a Chrono Trigger track that sounds a lot like late 90s, early 2000s pop. A little bit of Third Eye Blind in there, maybe a bit of Oasis. I think you can get that. You can hear the specific 90s tune in there. It's almost like it wants to become Jumper or Oasis throughout it, but it's taking the Chrono Trigger theme, putting it in that context. It's great. I mean, it's this mellow lo-fi acoustic track from a pretty well remixed source. You're not going to be hard-pressed finding a Chrono Trigger remix, but I think this does something a little unique with that theme. And I think for me, because... Yeah, we'll let it play. This is Notes from a Small Island by JJT from ocremix.org from the game Chrono Trigger. That was Notes from a Small Island by JJT from ocremix.org from the game Chrono Trigger. And I think what that song is missing for me, just keeping it away from being like amazing, is I wish there was vocals in that track. It nails that, like I said, that 90s, early 2000s sound so well. I want to hear somebody like Third Eye Blind or Oasis having lyrics in there. But you know what? Maybe that would ruin it. Maybe you added too much to the painting at that point. Our next track comes from this Tekken series, specifically Tekken 2. You know, I'd have to get my wife in here. She's the one who's played Tekken growing up. She's got nostalgia for that. Tekken 2 or Tekken 3, and she's gonna be upset that I couldn't remember which is which. This is a pretty beat-heavy, wavy piece. Feels like it's got some Eastern origins in it. And I kind of like the whispering sounds that's going in there. I can't hear what they're saying, but I like the effect they're creating. It really does have this exotic atmosphere to it, which I really like in my fighting game. So not much to say about Tekken 2, being a Street Fighter fan myself, other than I like this track. It's got some cool beats with a crunchy soundscape. So this is Incantation by djpretzel from ocremix.org from the game Tekken 2. was Incantation by djpretzel from ocremix.org from the game Tekken 2. I'll have to ask my wife. I almost bought Tekken 7 recently. It was on sale, but every time I gotta save up for Street Fighter 5. They're putting out a championship edition. And I now have successfully talked more about Street Fighter than I have about Tekken on this Tekken 2's track. NBA Jam from the Super Nintendo 1994 game, and boy does this track sound like an early 90s funk song. I mean, you got some kind of jazzy piano in there, which is cool, but yeah, the opening notes in this sound exactly how I remember the soundtrack of the early 90s sounding just like this. I didn't have NBA Jam, but I know its reputation is of great things. The original soundtrack was by John Hay, so they're remixing the Choose Your NBA Team mix here. You got a couple people on here. So this is called From Downtown by ktriton. Mustin, who I imagine is helping bring in that funk sound. Absolutely. Mustin always has that funky jazzy sound. And then you have Steve Lella from ocremix.org from the game NBA Jam. That was From Downtown by ktriton, Mustin, and Steve Lella from ocremix.org from the game NBA Jam. I mean, I was in trouble as soon as I picked a basketball game. The only basketball game I ever got into was NBA Streets, which I loved and played the heck out of. So I didn't have any experience with NBA Jam. Really, sports games for me, I didn't have any real interest in them until they became 3D. Outside of baseball, but maybe that's because baseball is just kind of a flat sport that translates well into 2D. Take that, baseball! This track is from Pokemon, the red version, in case anybody's wondering. You got the Victory Road theme here by Junichi Masuda being remixed. Yes, it's chiptune. Yes, it's synth. But it is some aggressive dubstep in this. It reminds me of how well-earned the climb of Victory Road felt as a kid, going to the Elite Four. After getting all the gym leaders, after leveling up all your Pokemon, you feel like a champion already, and you've got to climb the rest of the way there and take on that Elite Four. It takes that kind of source, the Victory Road source, and just kind of repeats it over and over again while doing all those, all the drops. It makes it kind of a stressful piece, but maybe that's just what dubstep does to everything. This is The Climb Above by Sentient Pulse from ocremix.org from the game Pokemon Red. That was The Climb Above by Sentient Pulse from ocremix.org from the game Pokemon Red. One of my favorite games. I don't care how many versions of Pokemon they do, nothing is ever going to top Pokemon Red for me. It's probably one of those, your first Pokemon's your favorite Pokemon, and that's going to be true. I could play Pokemon Red right now. In fact, as soon as this is done, I'm going to play some Pokemon Red. Or Temtem, isn't that the new thing? We played some heavy rock earlier, but I think this one gives that Thrash the Plank track a run for money. This is coming from Cave Story. Yeah, I think the electric guitar in this, I think the drums, it's just a heavier rock piece than even Thrash the Plank was. Thrash the Plank was still taking that atmospheric tune that David Wise does, whereas this is just trying to melt your face and rock you to your bone, with a little bit of synth in there, which I always appreciate when you throw synth into the hard rock. I think, for me personally, why I like a heavy rock song, if it's too metal in one direction, throw in some synth and you've evened it out for me. So this is Polar Star Overdrive by Joren de Bruin from ocunix.org from the game Cave Story. That was Polar Star Overdrive by Joren de Bruin from ocunix.org from the game Cave Story. And that was the last track of the show, so thank you for listening to Radio 64 Video Game Music Remix Radio. I have been your host, Eric Mickles, also known online as duskvstweak. You can find me on Twitter to request tracks or games or source tunes. You can also find me on Twitch and YouTube at duskvstweak. And Radio 64 is part of the Radio Meanwhile network. Visit radiomeanwhile.com for more information about this and other great podcasts. Find past episodes of Radio 64 on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube. And thank you to WRAQ 92.7 FM in Angelica, New York for hosting us every Monday at 6 p.m. See you next time.